All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, West Virginia Senator and corrupt corporate shill Joe Manchin has revealed his true divisive nature. His radical centrism is dividing the party and helping Donald Trump. Is he a Russian asset? Allow me to explain this latest entry in the Anybody But Bernie diaries. So earlier this week, I wrote about Bernie Sanders' uptick in the polls, which I attribute to drawing a greater contrast with Warren and more successfully making the case on his particular theory of change. Here he is in an interview earlier this week with CNBC's John Harwood, explaining how he will get a corporatist like Joe Manchin to vote for his priorities by literally bringing his working class movement to Manchin's back door. Let's take a listen.
Look, what happens right now, your average politician sits around and he or she thinks, they say, let's see, if I do this, I'm going to have the big money interest putting 30-second ads against me. So I better not do it. But now they're going to have to think, if I don't support an agenda that works for working people, I'm going to have President Sanders come into my state and rally working class people. You know what? At the end of the day, the 1% is very powerful. No denying that. The 99%, when they're organized and prepared to stand up and fight, they are far more powerful.
Now, this threat actually carries some weight in West Virginia since Sanders won literally every county in the state in the 2016 primary against Hillary Clinton. Weird that her corporate neoliberalism, which we are always told is the way to win back places like West Virginia, was apparently thoroughly and completely rejected. Well, now we have a response from Manchin. In an interview with Fox News, he said that if Sanders is the nominee, he will not back him.
Bernie and I have had many conversations. I think that Bernie brings a lot to the table, makes you think a little bit, kind of gets the blood going and stirring and everything, but it's not practical where I come from. Bernie keeps saying Medicare for all. I said, Bernie, we can't even pay for Medicare for some. I says, right now the trust fund's going to go broke by 2026, and these are people that paid into it and earned it. Now you want to expand it. What happens? So it doesn't make sense at all.
What if he were your nominee for president and it's him versus Donald Trump? Who do you vote for?
Well, it wouldn't be Bernie.
So when he was further pushed by Cavuto, Manchin would not say whether he would choose Trump, but he made it clear he would absolutely not support Sanders. Now, I want you to imagine, just for a moment, how many Neera-Tanden heads would automatically detonate if Bernie Sanders said he would refuse to back the Democratic nominee and hold out the possibility of choosing Trump instead. The MSM would even cut into their all-impeachment, all-the-time coverage to go into spasms of rage at the mere possibility that Sanders could possibly support Trump in this unfathomable way. Divisive, angry, makes my skin crawl. I don't doubt that some pundit or another would actually propose he was traitor to the nation for giving aid and comfort to Trump. HRC would likely emerge to accuse him of being a Russian asset, and spokesperson Nick Merrill would wittily snark, well, if the nesting doll fits. Weirdly, none of that happened. As it turns out, I guess with the vote blue no matter what mantra, some exclusions do apply. Namely, Bernie Sanders exclusions. This whole unity thing doesn't count if it's a centrist Democrat trying to save face with their corporate patrons. It's only when it's a progressive trying to actually get something done for the working class. Manchin's refusal to back Bernie is particularly galling since he did support Hillary Clinton in 2016, a woman who was despised in the state, lost every county in the primary, and whose model of politics was honestly an integral part of selling Manchin's people down the river. The utter gutting of small towns and small cities, commodification of everything, devastation of unions, and coziness to the big pharma companies that have utterly devastated a generation of Southern West Virginians. These were the Clinton politics that Manchin was comfortable with. Getting everyone health care and ending the environmental degradation that has literally poisoned the water his people drink and allowed outsiders to come in and suck his state dry of their natural resources, leaving little in return. That is apparently, in Manchin's words, not practical. Here's the thing. For so long, we've been told that in a place like West Virginia, you can't do better than Joe Manchin. I've got some roots in the state. I've actually worked in the state a bit, so I've got a little bit of an understanding here. And it is true. Joe is one of the few Dems who still wins there statewide. But at the same time, the corrupt, old-school Democrats like Manchin are actually a main part of the reason that the state has lost all faith in Democrats. You combine that with the national party filled with Hillary Clintons who look at the state with contempt, and you've got the makings of a massive political realignment, which, of course, we have seen. But I'll tell you this. I was there at the Capitol building in Charleston when thousands upon thousands of teachers rushed the halls, singing, dancing, and demanding a basic standard of living with the chant, "We are worthy." Just think about this. These workers, many with families and all with bills to pay, were told they could be arrested for striking and that their actions were illegal, and they freaking did it anyway. That is more radical militancy than any hashtag resistance Twitter storm or women's march, and it shows that a different kind of politics is possible in Appalachia, in the South, and across the heartland. A politics that's centered around economic populism, solidarity, and telling everyone standing in the way of the working man and woman having a good life to F off. That future is coming, whether it's this cycle or the next, and if people like Joe Manchin decide that they'd really rather be Republicans than change their tired ways, then by all means, they can take their radical ideas about government serving corporate interests and move right along. Sagar, the double standards here are incredible.
Yeah, it's funny.
People
Also,
lose
we don't
their
want
mind.
Joe Manchin for the record.
Yeah.
So, keep going.
I had a feeling you might say that.
Yeah, I was like, we don't want this guy. No, you're right. It's funny that if Bernie or if Elizabeth, any Democrat
Look
had
at what
said
Tulsi
something
Gabbard.
Also, here's the other thing. Remember whenever Trump was surging, and then every never Trumper on earth got their own like TV show,
They
still have TV shows, and are like all over cable
called
news.
MSNBC.
What about these like never burners, right? Like, where's
Right.
the standard and like the coverage of these people? It's actually it's worthy of a discussion, right? No, they'll never talk about it because that's where they all are, right? Like they all believe and agree with Joe Manchin. That's why he even gets to, he basically gets a pass from so many of these Democrats. I see the same thing on the Republican side, which is these people who have no alignment with Trump whatsoever get a complete pass for being ridiculous corporatists as like these these paragons of dignity, and nobody criticizes them or questions them critically. Drives me crazy.
Right. There's this very one-dimensional view of the quote-unquote purity test.
Yeah.
Right. The purity test is when you're like, no, I'm really going to have health care for everyone. Right. But when you're like, no, I'm really going to maintain the system, that is my purity test. There's just a blind spot there where that's concerned, and there's also a blind spot. The divisive thing is only applied in one direction, right? The moment someone like him is like, no, again, there's a lot of these people out there. You see them on cable news all the time who are like, well, if Bernie's the nominee, I don't know, maybe Trump isn't so bad.
Right.
That is never called out in the same way, which is just like insane.
Yeah, exactly.
The same people who make their living like all day long saying that Trump is the end of the republic. But, you know, if someone might actually raise their taxes, that might be worse.
Yeah, it's far too worse.
All right, Sagar's Radar is next. Stay tuned.